Hi everyone, I'm Libby, and in this video, I would love to walk you through a model for creative emergence. So what do I mean by creative emergence? First of all, what do I mean by creative? Creative for me is about getting the spark back in you. Some people might use the word spiritual or conscious, and I'm talking about something similar, but I like to use the word creative because I actually hold a vision that each of us have a piece of the puzzle that we're in. I picture life as a great adventure, and we're each bringing something to the table. And when you can identify yourself as a creative or a co-creative person, this is really beyond just being a singer or an artist in the way that this world sees an artist. And it's also beyond using your life or career necessarily to, you know, have that be the place that your most creative self is coming through, but it's starting to see your capacity to exert yourself into this world moment to moment. And then there's another side of this, which this calendar is specifically for, which is that there's those of us who actually do want to specifically bring in a new quality of work into the world. And that is why I use the word creative emergence, because for those of us who are bringing a new type of work into the world, there's not really a guidance system for that. And there shouldn't be, in a way, because it's a process. I believe that should be more intuitive, more self-guided. But that being said, what I see when I meet a lot of people similar to myself who are working on cultural change, working on things at the intersections, is that the overwhelm is so, so deeply intense because there's already so much pushback from other people. And then you also have your own demons and voices in your head that are like, don't go, don't go, don't go, don't do that, don't do that. And so the combination of the two can just really get you stuck. And then the third thing is that there's just so much abstraction. And so like actually taking action becomes very difficult. You might have a vision of world peace. You might have a vision of a shifted economy. You might have a vision of a new kind of love. You might have a vision of overcoming a certain kind of oppression or violence as a world. And it's something that's so beyond you that actually taking any action toward it feels impossible. But then time goes by and you're like, why? So creative emergence as a process is to offer some structure, and it's to offer some structure so that your system can be guiding you. So if you haven't checked out some of my other work, the other thing that I introduce people to is this concept of the sacred creator and the innovatrix. And so the sacred creator is my way of talking about basically the divine masculine or the structure in you, and the innovatrix is the divine feminine in you, or the this what I call surprise. You could also call it flow, but I like the word surprise because it also enables that this part of you is more trusting with the innate flow of things. So that's my aim. My aim is actually for people who are doing work that does not fit into a box, that you have some greater structure. And I want to speak some emotions around it that even I hold as I've been working on this. Like for many of us, frustration, fear, anger, stress, overwhelm, giving up, exhaustion, sadness, grief, panic, and a host of other things come along with doing the work that we are driven to do. I mean, to look at the world and actually say, I want to be a part of it and I want to do something in it is in it and of itself a big ordeal. And then to actually try to participate, typically that attempt at participation involves seeing the harm of so many paths or things that have come before us. And that in itself has its own excruciating pain. So the pain can lead us into a place where we're like, I just don't even want to do anything. And I really feel that my work, as I'm continuing to find it, is about traversing that, and traversing that actually extraordinary suffering is going to continue on this path, because that's what happens when you're traversing the unknown. Um, Not to say suffering is inevitable, but like it's hard to be a human. It's hard to experience that this body bleeds and that you lose, like I love the scene in Interstellar when they go to another planet and they lose time, like when we're working with the physical, when we're trying to do things in the physical, there's consequences. And so there's a lot of benefit to ourselves of just staying in the idea and just letting that ideal be there, or just staying in conversation. And to actually attempt to do things involves failing, involves ourselves getting hurt, involves other people getting hurt. It's exhausting, it's tiring, and it makes us say, like, why try anything? And the and then especially when like no one's putting pressure on us to actually do anything as an individual. And so to actually like get us connected to urgency, but not urgency where we're reacting to things, but urgency where we are proactively choosing to say, I am going to participate in this and I'm going to let these waves take me. It's a journey. It's definitely a journey to navigate. I'm navigating it. And so I hope that this first draft, this is a 2.0 version because I already did one, but this first draft of something that I've already been doing for 5 years can offer some guidance, some assistance in that process. And I absolutely would love feedback on this if you do decide to use it. So the first thing that I want to offer right now, I kind of have this in two parts, is that what I'm first guiding you to think about in your creative revolution, which is what we're calling you exerting your work and yourself and putting your work in the world, is that I'm setting you up to be in a place where you are working on yourself, you're working on your relationships, and you're working on this soul work coming through. And I call it soul work to just acknowledge that it's something that's calling you in, and that you might be calling in, but it's also calling you in. And these three are really part of my soul work in the world, because we live at a time where the divine feminine and the concept of heart and emotion is seen as the opposite of logic. So this path for me is all about supporting people to integrate their heart into what we do, instead of just believing that we're objective without emotion. Let's actually start to learn from emotion and let that guide our journey, but not in a way that where we just say we throw everything back, but that we do acknowledge that emotion also contains fuel. So that in itself has its own learning journey. There's a lot of reasons why you yourself might not want to work with emotion yet, but it's my proposal that as your relationships strengthen, your work will strengthen, and as your work strengthens, your relationships will strengthen, and at the heart of that is your own connection to your own gifts and your own struggles and shadows, and all of those things will be being worked on in your relationship and your process of bringing your work into the world. So there's absolutely no way for it not to be vulnerable. And that's scary, but it's also beautiful. With that, we're going to look at two different things. One is the yang taking consistent action over time and being able to learn and pivot with those actions. And the other is letting your genius, your heart, and your prosperity lead you. So on a practical level, this is a little tool book that you can use to start working on bringing more of your heart and more of your mission out into the world. So you can see along here, I have support for you when you're looking at your year, your season, and different cycles within that season. So the first thing is setting the more abstract side of things. And this is taking a little time to actually outline your vision. On the one side, you have commitments, and on the other side, you have what I call anchors. So your commitments are things where you absolutely do need this. You can't lie and pretend that you don't need health, or you don't need food, or you don't need a certain level of income, or you don't, for your commitments also might be to things that are larger than you that you have no idea how you're going to get to, but you feel that you want to live a life committed to a renewed environment, or you want to live a life committed to greater justice. The commitments allow you to say, there are things that I feel responsible for and to. The anchors are more about the energy, the emotions, the frequency, the resonance, the things that you actually want to feel that are driving you. And I like to put both of these here because for those of you who know that I use the name Creatrix, this is what Creatrix means to me. It's this balance of the physical needs that are driving our life when we don't even choose them or want them, and then the actual desires that we're bringing in. And so they really both have to be talked about, because we're not just here bringing our desires to the planet and our joys. We're actually in these material conditions that are creating obstacles, challenges, and unique circumstances for us. But we're also not just those challenges and obstacles. We also get to bring in our energy. So all this work is really about what I call superhero training, and allowing the superhero side of you to come through, the superhuman version of you. Not denying your humanity, but also acknowledging there's even more than wants to be expressed in this being than you may acknowledge. So once you have this vision that acknowledges your commitments and your anchors, which are actually going to continue to change as well. You might have them be the same your whole life, but it's also likely that the commitments will need to change based on the world and environment changing around you. Then we can look at taking aligned action. And aligned action means learning how to trust more of the intuitive next right thing to do. So don't worry, like you saw along the side, I still have year, season, cycles here, but this is what we want to get you in a state where You're thinking less about what's the right thing to do, period, and more living your day-to-day life from the state of flow, intuition, trust, and trusting that the next thing is going to lead to the next thing. That's the emergence side. So the three areas that I listed that you can put here are, not you can put here, but that I would say are intersecting to start to deepen and lift your being are the anchors of your genius or your gifts, your love and your liberation, and your purpose and your prosperity. And on the other side of this, I put these as anchors because I would say they're needs, but the other side of this is you might think that there's parts of your identity that you don't like, that you don't want to deal with, but this is a process of reclamation. This is a process of claiming who you want to be, but also claiming, like reclaiming the parts of you that you're rejecting. With love and liberation, you might think like, I just want this, but you also have been put in a situation where you have to deal with certain dynamics that you didn't choose, that you feel you didn't choose. And so this is why I put the verb here of commitment. Love is about devotion, ultimately. And I chose to use word commitment for the sake of the 3 C's here, but devotion is really the energy that I'm bringing to all the work that I do and offering to people. And the third thing is your purpose and your prosperity. And you might think, yeah, when everything's going great, I can just envision my purpose and prosperity. But the other thing is what I feel like I'm, maybe it's like some weight on your soul that you feel like you have to do. And so this is what I would call calling in. Calling in, your purpose and prosperity is not necessarily your job. It's not necessarily your career. Because your job and your career might actually have to be are more a part of the identity side here. That you are claiming the part of you that needs to eat. So you need to work this kind of job in order to have stability in your life. But the purpose and prosperity is still something deeper that you're listening to. And that's why I use the word call in, because no one is going to be able to claim that. It's another reclamation, but it's also a calling in that you're actually going to have to be in a state where you're attracting it, where you're magnetizing it, where you're similar to a beloved who's calling his or their beloved to them. Like, no matter how much you can't just go claim your beloved. You can claim yourself. That's a more masculine process. But you can't call in a beloved. You can't claim a beloved. You can't be like, get over here, come to dinner with me, eat with me, sit with me, tell me who you are. So it's actually a more feminine process than we think to allow the texture and the flavor and the being of our deeper purpose to speak to us. We can create the conditions. So in that regard, it's masculine, and that we're creating the conditions for it by showing up. That's the consistent action over time, but we're going to actually have to welcome it. So that's the interplay that's happening here. And you are going to be navigating how much rigidity do you need? How much structure do you need to start to call in, to commit to things, to reclaim things, and how much space do you need? Because maybe you've been so intense with yourself over the years that reclaiming parts of yourself actually means reclaiming the feminine and allowing there to be openness. And maybe you've been so committed to certain places or paradigms that now you actually need the permission to not belong to anyone or anything. But even then, I would say your commitment then is to your freedom or your openness or your love. So with your personal vision for the year, you're going to, I leave a page here where you can just answer. This is instructions at the top, and you can actually answer, what are my commitments? What is my anchor? I also use the phrase like, what resonates with me, to acknowledge that your anchor is also like not just something you're choosing. A lot of times we're like, how do I want to feel? Well, what actually feels good to you? Like, you didn't exactly choose that. It doesn't super matter, but it just allows you to be some mystery in this for you to actually keep discovering yourself, that maybe you want to wear the color red, so you go and get things that are red, but maybe you also have a little bit of play with the fact that you love the color red and you let red things find you. Like, can we be a little bit more open to the fact that what we're seeking is seeking us, so it doesn't feel like quite so much pressure? Now I call the soul business side or the soul purpose side our glow, our generative life opening work. To acknowledge it doesn't necessarily mean a job, but it's something that's going to actually keep expanding you or in relationship to it. So I have this as a separate space of vision, because your vision for the gifts, the liberation, the prosperity of this thing you're building might be different than the vision for you, which leads to let's go into boundaries for a minute. First, responsive boundaries. So boundaries is about acknowledging that you're going to have personal boundaries and you're going to have boundaries with your glow, because it's very challenging when you first start manifesting a deeper mission in the world to navigate the boundaries with yourself, because you might, let's say, have an inner child who's like, I don't like this at all and I'm going to get rejected and I'm scared. And you're like, okay, yeah. And like, we have something else we're doing. And then it also can be challenging to have boundaries with the glow, the generative life opening work, because you might have parts of yourself there that are like, I need to, the world is going through XYZ change. So now I have to show up in XYZ way, or I was working on my health or my relationships, but now I'm going to give them up in order to be on this. And again, we're trying to find balance here. So we want to keep coming back into boundaries with ourselves. Like, what boundaries with myself do I need to actually cultivate my glow? And what boundaries do I need around my glow to support myself? And we're trusting that you can use another word. I also put sun there to say your soul unveiling niche, because it really is just a niche. We're all working on this collective change together. But whatever it is, your sun or your glow, I want you to picture that it's actually a light and it's actually expanding in you. And the more that you allow it to expand, the more you're actually going to end up expanding. The more that you develop and are healthy, the more that its glow is going to expand. So we're really crushing a vision that, like, you either are going to have a great career or you're going to have a great love life. To, like, first of all, that's not even the dichotomy. We're actually designing something for you to systematically grow. We're co-creating with Source and your highest self to design an experiment for you to get to express yourself in, because the whole world's on a great experiment and you have something to offer. And we want your well-being in it. This is like a huge paradigm shift from work is just work, or it's about work-life balance. Like, no, this is literally saying, from my vantage point, you are a material spiritual being. You have things to do here, and your path here is going to actually be lifting and lighting you up. Do things work absolutely perfectly like this? No, but that's the whole point of your creatrix. You're here to deal with the challenges, the commitments, and also to bring your frequency. It's not either or. So with that paradigm shift, then we can actually start to look at the seasons in a new way. I only work in seasons because seasons acknowledge that your work, just like with seasons, we actually picture that weather changes happen, that things might take seasons. A baby takes 9 months to grow. If you put seeds in, and if you plant seeds in the fall, I'm not a farmer, okay? But if you plant seeds in the colder weather or whenever you're supposed to plant them, and then you harvest them in the fall or the spring or the summer, your body, our system can actually, the natural part of our system can actually grasp that things take time. Our mind wants to rush things, but we already live in a world that's out of sync with seasons and cycles. So let's come back to that. If we're going to be operating in a new way, let's come back to seasons and cycles. So, and I suggest that you only need to write your goals for the upcoming season. If you want to put them for the future ones, you can, but you want to get yourself oriented. You can even double this and put this for the following year too. If you happen to have a sense of how long something you're growing might take. You might not. Like, I don't want to put the years because I don't want you to limit it, but you can consider that. And then I also like this concept of working with possibility and commitment. So instead of just putting like the explicit goals here, what are your possibilities and what are you committed to? Because possibilities are going to keep you, like, you might be in a state where you're like, okay, I could see this becoming a play, or I could see this becoming a book, or I could see this becoming a project. But you really don't know, because technology could come out next year that makes it like way easier to turn this into a virtual experience, or technology might come out that makes it way easier to make this into an actual educational or teaching experience. So we want to stay really open to possibility, but then also stay committed to what we're actually committed to. So my values might be adventure and play. So then no matter what the form is, I'm always going to be looking for adventure and play. So now from there, you could just go into your how you're going to plan out a cycle. But I'll just first say I like to also include this page about support systems, because we're adjusted to thinking we all have to do everything alone, but we don't have to do everything alone. We are shifting that paradigm. And so I like to say you're in a relationship with your glow itself, with the soul work. We want the soul work to be lifting us up and not pulling us into the type of vortex where we're like so isolated from others, or so losing our joy or our energy. So evaluating that relationship, evaluating your relationship with God, source, or your higher self, evaluating your relationship with others, and evaluating your relationship with nature. And with each of these, I say, what's your belief about it? Because your beliefs are also going to change about this. Like, the whole creative emergence process is about questioning how much is us, how much is God, how much is others, like really letting things open in this department. And it's not for me to say, this is how it's all going to work. It's for me to say, there's actually a structure where you can keep opening and spiraling more and more and more into support. So I get that all that could sound a little abstract, but how this is going to help you to take daily action is within a season, I put 12 months. So, sorry, there's 12 months within a year. Within a season, there's 3 months, but I break that out into 4 cycles. So in winter season, you would have 1 3-week cycle, second 3-week cycle, third 3-week cycle, fourth 3-week cycle. And then you're going to have the same in spring, you're going to have the same in summer, you're going to have the same in autumn. So what happens when you start to think of things in just those spirals rather than in a timeline where you're taking linear steps? In a timeline when you're taking linear steps, you might think, I just want to take one at a time because I'm scared. Or you might think it's taking too long, so I'm going to start skipping steps and I'm going to start taking 5 steps at a time to try to make it faster. But if you take things out of just a linear view and a view of steps and you put it into a view of spirals, you can imagine that if you were trusting the spiral, like, you can't get off the spiral, but you might be doing things smaller in tighter coils, and then you might actually start to do things wider and bigger. Or you might be starting and thinking that you're in this big, wide spiral, but then as you get more skilled, you become more narrow and spirally. And then if you were to imagine yourself, let's say, in the cosmos of existence or in the human body, you can imagine that things going at different frequencies. This is why it's important we're trusting our frequency. What things at different frequencies, resonances, speed can do different things. We don't all need to be the same. We need some people operating the heart, the breath, the lungs, the legs, some of us muscles, some of us joints. Like, there's literally infinite roles here for all of us. None of us were smashing the paradigm that some of us are better or worse because of where we land. It's literally attuning to what lights us up so that we can have more fun out here. So that being said, there's those who do want to take actions, who want to actually, actualize certain books, pieces, schools, platforms. So these 3 cycles here are, oh, let's see. Yeah, okay. Oh, shoot, I just realized I should have said season. Yeah, okay. Let me edit those. Yeah, these are seasons, but in it, the cycles are broken out. So you would eventually, I'll make this into a formal journal that you can order. But for now, what you have is when you open up the season and the 4 cycles in there. At the beginning of the season, you can put your personal vision, your glow vision commitments. Maybe they're the same, maybe they're different. Your personal anchors, your glow anchors, maybe they're the same, maybe they're different. And then these 3, we're claiming, committing to, and calling in. And you can put a little vision for each of them. What are you going to feel like? You already have this over here in your year vision for both of them, but now you can just put a couple just for this season. What is your identity going to feel like? What are your relationships going to feel like? What is your creative expansion going to feel like? Or you could also say your creative expansion or impact. I have a hard time with the word impact, so let's just say expansion. And then you can actually put your goals by week. So this is going to make it such that you're growing. Like once you can start to conceptualize things in a 3-week period, it's going to be less scary to take action on anything. So you right now know that you have this larger goal, that you have these commitments you're a part of, the things that are anchoring you. You're going to have responsive boundaries. Your vision for creative emergence might involve several years. That's okay. You're willing to let things go through the gestation phase. That word. This is this process of building the baby, the process of letting seeds be and harvest. You're not going to be rushing. You're not going to be putting so much pressure. At the same time, you're going to be willing to take the actions that you need to take each week, and you're going to be willing to evaluate them every single 3 weeks. Maybe these actions have started to yield new results so that your spiral can actually get wider or narrower, or maybe they haven't, so you actually need to switch your actions. When you're looking at a week, then you can recall your vision for a season, your vision for the cycle you're in, your vision for the week. You can stay committed to your commitments, but then also stay open to possibilities. And with your day, you can have a little bit more flexibility. You have this larger vision. You have your vision for the season, vision for the cycle, vision for the day. You don't have to write all that, but it's there for you. And then you can start to live your day with greater responsiveness. You're going to be in a state where you're thinking about the commitments that are moving you toward your vision, but also you're going to be thinking about your needs, the support that you could use, where you can open to greater trust, where you can open to greater play. And the goal here is what I like to call spontaneous intuitive action. Like we actually want you in the world, doing, playing, having fun. Whew. It's a lot to get to a place where you are the authority of your life and really working with the different pieces of you. So I commend you and encourage you for even trying this process. And I say, give it a try. Let more of yourself speak. There's plenty of meditations and other work to start to support the emotional pieces of you that are very important to complement this, that you can have through working with me in Creative Embodiment. But this is your basic structure for starting to see a multi-level view of your whole being development and being in a relationship with your calling. And also hold calling loosely. Calling does not mean that that's your only path or you'll only ever be on it, but it lets you be in response to things that are bigger than you instead of just assuming it's just you exerting your will onto things. It's actually you being responsive as well, receiving support in that process. You are loved.